and the A-tax portion has already been submitted with no input from the board, 70% of the lodging entities, and no resident input. The Accommodations Advisory Board has neither passed nor failed this budget, but asked for more time to study it. They must act by state mandate before City Council can advance vote on it to be in compliance with state law. Excuse me, state code. Since I joined the Voluntary Advisory Committee almost a year ago, we've been met with obstructionism and now irrelevancy by many actions of the city. Among the actions are a letter from the mayor limiting our work, requirement that we go through the chairperson to receive information, misinformation about saying we must not meet now, even though we can still meet, we just can't vote as a 3-member group. There have been lack of agenda items included, request of information hasn't been provided after repeated requests. Note some of the same information is now being given to the task force, A-tax task force, that we were not given and asked for many times. The task force, I'm a bit confused about why they were formed. It appeared it was apparently to slow the process and supersede our advice.
Ms. Neal,
And yes,
so you need to wrap up your comments. It's been 3 minutes.
it's 3 minutes.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
timed it and I thought my whole amount fit. Well, I will say it's embarrassing to the city that A-tax members are not allowed to speak without having to come to public comment for 3 minutes. I will send all of you all these written comments because I think they're very relevant. And you all should be hearing from the A-tax committee and making them a viable, relevant group again. Thank you.
Miss Amy Scarella.
Hi, I'm Amy Scarella. I live on Cameron Boulevard also. I wanted to bring to attention some of the builder concerns that I have. I've been dealing with building on both sides of my home now for about a year. I've had my driveway unnecessarily blocked multiple times, trash and building materials in my yard, workers starting before 7:30 a.m. and exceeding 6 p.m. almost daily. In the beginning, I was tolerant, texted the builder, didn't want to get him in trouble. Now I've had it. I've called the police per Douglas Carr, I wasn't sure how you pronounced it, Director of Planning and Zoning over 8 times in the last 10 days. I've spoken to the livability officer who also confirmed that they're the contact for noise and parking complaints. And my only option is really to continue to call the officers who I think have better things to do than monitor builders on the island. And I know they're short-staffed to begin with. There have been no consequences, and this particular builder continues to ignore and blocked my driveway himself. A local brought to my attention that the size of the home seems to be beyond the size that the island dictates. I can't speak to that, to the measurements, but I'd be curious to know. I assume Care would be the person to ask. I'd like for the written statutes to be revisited and revised as we live in this unprecedented time of building here on a small island. For example, work hours say 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m., but the police chief said that if they're quiet, they can continue to work. But that contradicts the actual law itself. And it's confusing. Saturday work hours are not allowed on Sullivan's Island. And I think it's fair to say that residents here don't necessarily want to sit in their yards and hear circular saws going during season. I'm not saying that it has to be year round. I'm just saying that during the season, it makes sense for work not happening on Saturdays. So I'm proposing that you consider hiring somebody or giving somebody the duties of a construction build supervisor. This was somebody that would monitor work hours, parking, and issue violations or citations if violations were made. There are 2 swimming pools behind my house that are being built, but there's water in them and there's no temporary fence or anything like that. And where I used to live, you had to have a fence up because if a child walked through there and drowned, it's a problem. And I'm shocked that it's not a law, but there was, again, confusion with that when I talked to the housing department. Whether it is a law or not a law, something to consider. Noise complaints, obviously go through the police department, which is annoying for them, but
Ms. Scarella.
I'm there.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but at least this person who is supervising the builders could then get those noise complaints from the police and deal with them so that they don't have to. I just think it's not a good use of their time. The rate of building on the island has probably tripled in the last year, 2 years, I don't know. But I just feel like with progress, there has to be change and somebody has to be available to deal with what's going on. Because it's not slowing down anytime soon. And I've noticed a lot of the streets just in my area are constantly blocked by builders' trucks and things like that. So I know it's not life or death, but it's something that's bothering me. So I brought it here. Thank you.
Ms. Kathy Campbell.
Kathy Campbell, 10 20th Avenue, Mayor Pounds and council members. First, I'd like to address Mayor Pounds' message from the mayor in the Island Eye News dated April 8th. If I was an IOP resident with little to no knowledge of how ATAX 30% monies can and have been spent, I'd have decided after reading this message, yes, please continue to give the money to the Charleston Visitors Bureau because they're doing a terrible job of increasing tourist attendance. And I don't want any more tourist attendance. But for the mayor to have just sat through the presentation by Mayor Goodwin of Folly Beach, where he described how Folly Beach is using this money for things like purchasing portable restroom trailers and placing them on the beach, installing water fountains and having cultural events, this message from Mayor Pounds is misleading. Additionally, for him to say that we cannot set up our own DMO when one like the CVB already exists is misleading. This is exactly what Folly Beach did in 2004, and it has existed ever since. The mayor's quotes from Chapter 4, Title 6 of SC Code of Laws are indeed accurate, but interpretations of this law, such as those mentioned above, have held up to Turk oversight. Continuing to give this money to CVB is an injustice to IOP tourists, IOP residents, and short-term property owners alike. This is all related to the passage of the 2023 budget, which is listed on today's agenda. The ATAX committee has not approved the budget, which will continue to give this money to the CVB. We have a task force that is making clear progress, building on all the work done by the ATAX committee. I would ask council to vote no on approving this budget today and let the task force make its recommendations first regarding where this money should be spent. Regarding the council's plan to meet behind closed doors of a workshop, thus eliminating the open, transparent discussions of committees is contrary to what this group of new council members and this mayor ran on, transparency. I ask that you live up to your campaign promise of transparency by keeping the committees. Lastly, regarding Marina parking, I ask that you would do what is best for your voters and stop this situation where parking spots for residents are being threatened. Thanks to Katie Myers, we have secured our meager 16 spots in the exclusive parking lot, but now the shared lot is being targeted. The shared lot has added signs that require payment to park there. Not sure who authorized this. Was it a previous city council? I'd really like to know. And who gets the money from these shared parking spaces? If this wasn't done in an appropriate manner, please have these signs taken down and keep the parking free as it has always been. Also, this shared parking lot is apparently being leased out to overnight and long-term Goat Island residents. These spots are needed for IOP residents and the new restaurant's customers. We all want this new restaurant to succeed. How can it if there is no place to park? Thank you.
Mr. Mike Campbell. Oh, I skipped right over Ms. Rosenthal.
I also live at 10 20th Avenue with Kathy Campbell and have for almost 24 years. I'm up here to discuss the noise ordinance regarding leaf blowers.
Hey, Mike, can you get the mic? Make sure the mic's right on.
Is that better? Is that good? Okay, sorry about that. Backpack blowers are the most efficient tool for removing leaves, yard debris, cleaning decks, driveways, flower beds, dust and grit from your garage and your truck bed, etc. The difference between a gas blower, an electric blower, or a battery blower is CFM, cubic feet per minute. In order to deliver more CFM, you need more power. The advantages of obtaining highest CFM are that the leaf blowers blow more leaves and debris with every pass. It also blows the leaves further and you can clear the area faster. Therefore, you can clean your yard quicker, more efficiently, and it's extremely useful when you promise you'll clean the yard in time for the game on TV. So, cordless models are no match for gas power. Battery models are more expensive than electric corded ones and have limited times per manufacturer for the batteries. And then the batteries themselves have a limited lifetime and they're expensive to replace. This proposal seems to be an extreme government overreach of power. Next, it'll be lawnmowers, weed eaters, chainsaws, hedge trimmers, pressure washers, air compressors, gas golf carts, motorcycles, nail guns, generators, and yeah, wind chimes will be after that. So we live in an area that's subject to a lot of storms, and these tools are essential factor to minimum disruption of service. Commercial use of these tools make for less labor costs to homeowners. There are a lot of hardworking individuals and small businesses that in these inflated times do not need any added costs in order to pay for fuel to get to work and to pay to feed their family. Thank you.
Ms. Brenda Rosenthal.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Brenda Rosenthal. I live on 3013 Waterway Boulevard. It's the first time I've spoken publicly to you guys, but I've spoken to all of you pretty much individually a lot. So I won't belabor a lot of points. And I didn't prepare anything specific because I wanted to see what was being said before I got up here. My main concern right now, amongst many things, is the parking at the Marina. I've watched and studied and read the leases ad nauseum. And I want to just follow up with what Randy said. I don't know who is the right property manager for our commercial property. I don't know if it's the council. I don't know if it's the city administration. I don't know that anybody's licensed to do it. I don't know who's assuming full responsibility for it, but we've got bad leases and they're being executed poorly. And in light of this new group, that have come in and spent over $3 million, I hear, on my property that I own, along with the rest of you. I feel really badly that we've a bit thrown them to the wolves and said, work it out yourself with the other tenant. I don't know that that's the way an owner deals with property. So I know this council and administration have a lot to work on there, but I'm a native Charlestonian. And I've lived on this island for 30 years. I have never once paid to park there, been asked to pay to park, nor has anybody I've ever met been asked to pay to park. So how this happened, who gave permission, and how this tenant is getting away with this, I just really encourage. I know y'all are going into executive session, but I just want you to know that a lot of residents are really concerned about it. And we elected y'all to keep us in mind. So thank you for all your hard work. I know you got a lot on your plate. Thank you.
Carly David.
I am going to prefer because they have said it and you don't even hear it again.
That's all.
Thank you all for attending tonight and speaking and timely. Very much appreciated, given the length of our agenda tonight. Next item is consent agenda. I would like to pull out the meeting minutes review and make a motion to approve as amended. There's a second. Second. Nicole, I've got two.
Both sets of minutes. The council minutes.
Just the council minutes. from our regular meeting on March 22nd.
All right, so I'd have to change.
First item is 4A. You have the motion being made by Councilmember Pounds and a second by
Oh.
Mayor Pounds.
You didn't bilocate that?
I
will re-listen to the recording.
right.
Thank you.
And then the next one is item 6B, says Councilmember Bogosian made a motion. Pretty sure it's Councilmember Han made
Okay.
that motion. Any other edits or changes to meeting minutes?
So the
Nicole?
motion now on the floor is just for the consent agenda, and then we can make a motion to approve
No, I think he took the
I
minutes.
pulled out the meeting minutes.
of the consent. So, okay, so
You're
that was
voting
your motion was to. do the
Motion was
minutes
to
first.
pull them
Gotcha.
out and approve as amended. And we had a second. So let's vote on that and then we'll do the consent agenda.
Councilmember Anderson. Aye. Councilmember Bogosian.
Aye.
Councilmember Han.
Aye.
Councilmember Myers.
Aye.
Councilmember Pierce.
Abstain.
Councilmember Popson.
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman.
Aye.
Councilmember Ward.
Aye.
Mayor Pounds.
Aye.
All in favor?
Thank you. And if there are no other changes, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. item.
Motion to approve the consent agenda. I do have one question, if I may.
I need a second in order to discuss that. All right, Thank
Go
you.
ahead, Jimmy.
I just would like a little more information about the item B, the Purvis Station Alerting System. I've had some people ask me, why wasn't that requested when we did all the renovations to the fire station? Was it just now discovered that it's needed?
Yeah, so that's not a building code. It's not a building code requirement that, so there wasn't a deficiency per se in the building when this building was renovated. This is more about bringing our both stations in compliance with what other stations are having and what they have in order to alert and provide information to our staff when they're responding to calls. So it's just really an efficiency tool that's going to help them respond quicker and get more information on the front end on what kind of emergency they are responding to. This was one of those items that our new chief reviewed as part of his the 30-day assessment of the department and was requested as something that would better serve our department and certainly would hopefully serve and improve response times.
Certainly seemed like it's a safety issue and something that if not had been required in the past, it certainly should have been looked at. And I'm glad it's on the agenda.
That's right.
finally.
We can, I mean, I can ask our fire chief. He can, I think, more eloquently explain what
No,
the,
it's fine.
Okay.
I've got my answer. Thank you.
And I think getting us in compliance with the rest of the county.
that's right. And recently, the city of Charleston retrofitted all of their stations to include this, as well as Mount Pleasant also have it. So I fully support, I mean, I trust that when these type of requests come before as a recommendation from the fire chief, it's something that has been properly vetted and certainly would serve well.
Nicole?
Councilmember Anderson. Aye. Councilmember Bogosian.
Aye.
Councilmember Han.
Aye.
Councilmember Myers.
Aye.
Councilmember Pierce.
Aye.
Councilmember Popson.
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman.
Aye.
Councilmember Ward.
Aye.
Mayor Pounds.
Aye.
All in favor?
Next item is reports from standing committees. First is Ways and Means. Amy, if you'll pop up the one-page financials. Please. Thank you. These are our financial results through March 31st of this year. You can see top left column. So we're 3/4 of the way through our fiscal year. So if we were right on budget, that would say 75% in the year-to-date percentage number. And you can see just about everything's over budget from a revenue standpoint, where you like to be. On the right-hand side, expenditures, just really one item that's over from an expenditure standpoint from that side. General fund revenues are in good shape. Our expenses are in good shape. We're in line very much with budget from an expense standpoint, about 6% ahead of last year, but very much in line from a budget. We have about $30 million in cash deposits and about 16.5 million of that is restricted for certain uses. Any questions? We'll have more information on the full budget a little bit later. Questions on financials?
One question,
Yes,
please.
sir.
What's the fund balance in the beach preservation fee? They'd be interested in that after the presentation we
that.
have tonight.
If you have that right off the top of your head. I want to say it's in the $6 to $6.5 million
I
range.
think you're
but-
correct. Yeah.
Mhm.
Sorry, Jimmy, I didn't have my full budget with me.
That's all right. I didn't.
Right at
Right at
6 million.
six.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of a timely,
Yeah.
timely question, given the
Yeah, I think it's
conversation
important.
tonight.
People know. Thank you.
Amy, if you'll do the capital projects real quick, we'll run through some of the projects that are going on. Marina Restaurant, a lot of conversation around that. Obviously, finishes are complete, floors have been sanded, refinished. Building inspector and fire marshal are scheduled to conduct a full inspection prior to opening date. Work on the parking lot right around the marina will be happening, I think, this week. I think that's scheduled. Actual opening date will is contingent upon DHEC permit. We've got some photos, I think, on the next slide. They have really done a nice job with the finishes and the look and the colors and everything. It looks really good if you haven't been down there. Next item is our Marina dock rehab. And these updates are in much more detail in last week's Ways and Means. If you want a better update from our city administrator when she did them last week. Final walkthrough happened on Friday, April 15th. There are some warranty items and some punch list items that are going on. Coating, extra coating on the bulkhead where the fire suppression lines fed through. Repouring of some sidewalk area close to the fuel hut. Desiree, anything to update there since we've had the final walkthrough?
No, I mean, they're just going through final punch list items, small items. I know that last week they were, I have not received the final test results from the last lab test for the water system. So I'm still waiting on that confirmation, and that will generate the DHEC permit.
Okay, and then really close that project out.
That's right.
Thank you. Next one is our phase 3 drainage project. 30th and 36th, we had our pre-construction meeting last week with Thomas and Hutton, Quality Enterprises, and the Water and Sewer Commission. May 2nd, the site prep begins. May 5th, construction actually begins on the 30th and 36th outfalls. Waterway golf course work on the Harbor Golf Course will be completed by June. Waterway and 30th will close. You can see there between July 28th and August 10th for 10 days. Waterway and 36th will close between October 3rd and October 8th. Those dates could certainly shift, but we'll have some information on the website if need be. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we're currently in talks with our contractor and the engineers, and it seems that the road closures are going to be a little bit longer than what we're saying there. We're trying to work with them to try to squeeze it as much as we can, try to find ways to mitigate the road closure, particularly on the weekends when there's no work to be done. So those dates will change. I just want to alert you all that we're working through it to try to minimize it as much as possible. But in order to get this project completed by the end of this year, it's going to be challenging, and we're going to have to work through, particularly this summer. But we are working through and trying to minimize it as much as possible. We are working on an advisory that will be sent out, distributed directly to the residents who live around the work areas, with a little bit more information, details on who to contact, where to go for additional information, if they have any concerns, what we can do to try to mitigate any impacts that they might have during the construction. And we'll share that with you all in case you all get any calls and questions or concerns. You can provide them with that.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Yeah.
So how much longer? Do you know? I mean, the delays,
This,
any
it's not a delay, it's just that the road closure we're talking about several weeks, potentially.
For each one of those projects?
That's right, sir.
Well, July 28th through August 8th, and then add some more days on. That's prime thunderstorm season. We're gonna be stuck on this island at least part of the time.
They'll just fly down Cameron.
Yeah.
41st Avenue have most of our permits, again, waiting on a final permit from OCRM. Project was put on public notice for 30 days, starting April 14th through May 14th. Again, this is the project where we have received a grant of $1.4 million at this point from the South Carolina Office of Resilience. Anything else? Yeah.
Yeah, just a quick update on that. We've initiated conversations with our grant writer and our engineers about the city submitting a grant amendment to, just go through the process and see if the State Office of Resiliency would cover the cost of covering the ditch between Waterway to the end of 41st Avenue. We talked about that being in the FY '24 budget. When we're ready to start construction on 41st Avenue, we received favorable response from the state office about their ability to cover those costs. So we're gonna work with our grant writer and submit a grant application for that. And hopefully we get a favorable response. And that would mean that the state office would be covering 100% of the construction of the outfall project. That's
Yeah,
right.
Specifically.
Yes.
Next one is comprehensive drainage master plan. A lot of work going on there. Staff met with Davis and Floyd on the 24th of this month. This will continue to work through the rest of this year and still a target date for the end of the year for completion for this master plan. Last item is underground and utilities. You may recall our first project that we are working with Dominion on was identified at 21st and Palm, kind of right at the curve, right in front of the church. So that cost has come back at around $65,000. The city's part of that would be half. If the work that they have budgeted and projected winds up being more than that, there's no additional cost from the city standpoint that would fall on Dominion. So this work is scheduled hopefully in the fall, winter of 2022. One other project that we haven't updated you on in a little while, we've done a lot of aesthetic to the council chambers, but next up is the audio visual system that might be circa 1972 or so. Might have been about the same time Windjammer kicked off. So we have signed a contract with a provider to redo the audio video work in here. All the equipment's been ordered. It's about a 3 to 4 month lag time on the equipment that we'll put into the council chambers here. There's about a 1 week installation. So hopefully we will get that done maybe midsummer-ish if the equipment comes in at the right time. Our contractor has full confidence that once we have the new equipment in, updated microphones and sound system, that will significantly improve our closed captioning work. So we want to put that in before we look at any alternatives to go down that path. So is there anything there? So real quick from our minutes, I think just about everything in Ways and Means is either already included in the budget or was included in the consent agenda. The only item, we had a lengthy discussion on shared parking at the Marina. We'll have an update on an agenda item in just a moment on that. Our next meeting for Ways and Means is Tuesday, May 17th at 5 p.m. There's one item that is on our agenda that we need to adjust, if you will. It's approval of a purchase of an F-150 truck for the fire department in the amount of $52,000. Council had previously approved this on November 17th of 2021 in the amount of $44,000, but just due to availability and cost of cars and trucks right now, we need to adjust that from $44,000 to $52,000.
Do you need a motion?
I do.
So move.
Second. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Where would the difference be made up? Line item?
You don't have this, where we're funding this particular truck out of, do you know, Desiree, off the top of your head?
No, I mean, we're gonna be under budget in another line item that we can transfer some money into to cover the additional expense.
Okay. You're just not ready to specify that tonight?
I am not.
Okay.
Nicole? Sorry.
Councilmember Anderson.
Aye.
Councilmember Goshen.
Aye.
Councilmember Han.
Aye.
Councilmember Myers.
Aye.
Councilmember Pierce.
Aye.
Councilmember Popson.
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman.
Aye.
Councilmember Ward.
Aye.
Mayor Pounds.
Aye.
All in favor?
Thank you. Next up is Public Safety Committee.
Public Safety Committee met on April 13th, 2022. All committee members were present. Fire Chief Oliverius reported that there were 64 calls in March. One of note was a structure fire at Porter Call in Wild Dunes, which was taken under control quickly. The call used the mutual aid agreement we have with neighboring Sullivan's Island and Mount Pleasant, but were able to turn them back because they got the fire under control very quickly. This is important because it demonstrates how we enhance our own capabilities using reciprocity with neighboring communities when necessary. Police Chief Cornett reported 816 calls for service in March, which was fewer than in 2021. 127 parking citations and 306 traffic stops were made. Open positions, we have 3 full-time and 4 temporary positions yet to fill. Is that still accurate? Okay. I was privileged to attend the pinning ceremony for 3 officers last week, and it just goes to show that we are continuing to keep our community safe. Administrator Fragoso reported on the South Carolina DOT project, which began a study of the IOP connector that will review the striping of the roadway and present several options for consideration. The study should take about 6 months, and there will be an opportunity for the community to provide input on the options before the final plan is adopted. So stay tuned. This project will be followed by another study of the entire connector corridor, and there'll be more on that at a later date. In the interim, South Carolina DOT has also agreed to look at the signal timings at the Palm Boulevard connector intersection here on the island, and I think possibly at Rifle Range Road too. So we may see some quick fixes before the summer rush starts. The committee recommended several requests for additional equipment, which I think we've already covered. The next public safety meeting will be held on Thursday, May 5th at 10 a.m.
Questions?
Questions?
Thank you, Jan. Public Works.
Thank you, sir. Public Works Committee met at 3:30 p.m. Wednesday, April 6th. Department reports. Director Pitts said garbage collection, miscellaneous debris collection were up again in March. Yard debris collection has been maintained throughout the month and is on a weekly pickup schedule. There was discussion about the rodent problem at the city compactor, J.C. Long Boulevard. The assistant director said he would be contacting the exterminator, but would need to see plans for any proposed changes before giving an opinion about what would solve the problem. The mayor gave an update on phase 3 drainage, so we'll move on to update and consideration of proposals for the installation of improvements to golf cart path along Ocean Park Plaza and intersection improvements at Ocean Boulevard and J.C. Long Boulevard. There's not much to say about it. They were both pushed forward, and we're looking forward to getting these projects underway. It's going to improve the safety factor at those 2 locations, very much so. There was discussion of requests from the dinghy to relocate the existing compactor located at small municipal parking lots. And we passed a motion to put a placeholder in the Ways and Means to forward the Ways and Means for $100,000, put in the budget to figure out what we need to do down there. It might cost $5,000, it might cost 20. We don't know. We just want to put a placeholder just in case, so we can take care of that sanitation problem down there. And we had a discussion of existing requirements related to new development, submittal of the stormwater management plan. There was also a discussion and consideration of pavement repairs at Palm Boulevard, 45th Avenue. And also discussion or consideration of drainage improvements at the end of 25th Avenue. The next meeting date for the Public Works Committee will be Wednesday, May 4th at 3:30.
Questions for Public Works? Jimmy, thank you.
I have one question.
Sorry.
At the end of 25th Avenue, have we started that project?
Douglas, if you don't mind, is that okay? That's right.
Sure.
Very knowledgeable about this.
Oh, yeah.
It has, there's an agreement between the city and the DOT to do that project. They are going to provide all of the piping, all of the work, and an earthen berm. They started, I think, last week, just clearing out the section, clearing the vegetation. So a little bit of work has been done, not much yet. But we expect that they will arrive. They're always kind of unannounced, but we expect in the next 60 days, they will do their portion of the work, which will leave us we still will need for the city to install the valves in those pipes. So a little bit of work is done, but the kind of difficulty of getting an arrangement worked out with them for them to do it was kind of the hard part of that project.
But we're working on it. It's an active project. So
Active
great.
project, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Recreation Committee? Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The rec committee met on Monday, April 11th at 12:30. The meeting was called to order. Council members Meyer and myself were present along with staff. We approved the previous meeting's minutes. There was no citizens' comments. And Assistant Director Farrell gave us her department reports. Two highlights, online resignation for summer camp began March 14th and went very smoothly. Camp is full. And then another highlight, upcoming events include music in the park in May and sand sculpting contest in June. Just another friendly reminder to all residents that all events, programs, minutes are online for them to review. We did not have any old business. Our new business was a discussion for the city's 70th anniversary, which is, I believe, this year. After some discussion, the committee made a recommendation to Ways and Means to change this to a 75th anniversary celebration. Moved on to miscellaneous business. Desiree reported that there was free meditation class will begin on Thursday, April 21st at the 8 a.m. at the public dock, and there was no need to sign up. I'm not sure if you had any takers.
We're all going next week.
We are.
I saw someone posted that they went.
There you go.
I saw a picture.
It started
Looked
last
very
week.
peaceful.
The rec committee or the rec staff gets really busy in May. So we have not scheduled a meeting in May. So our next meeting will be set for June 6th at 12:30. So ends my report, Mr. Mayor.
Questions for Kevin? Thank you, Kevin. Personnel, John.
Yes, and there was no meeting in April. The only agenda item we had was one open tax committee member, and we were getting candidates lined up. We did, since that point, we had 3 additional tax committee members open, of which we'll be addressing at the next personnel committee member. I would like to remind everyone though that the tax committee by statute consists of 7 members. With the majority being from the hospitality industry of the island. At least 2 members need to be from the lodging industry, of which those 2 are currently filled by current tax committee members. 2 from the hospitality industry, 2 at large, of which 1 is currently filled with the current tax members, and then 1 representing a cultural organization on the island. So we're looking for specific members to fill those vacancies that again are required by statute. So we're keeping the applications open until the end of the month. Please encourage anyone that fits any of those 2. Again, 2 members from hospitality, 1 at large, and 1 representing the cultural organization to apply for the tax committee. Again, we'll be addressing that at the next meeting. Per the employee handbook, council is being asked to reappoint and approve the following employees to the grievance committee. That's Douglas Carr, Norma Jean Page, and Donnie Pitts. So I'd like to make a motion.
Efficient.
Yeah.
Questions or?
Give me a chance to finish. All right, so should we take a vote?
Absolutely. Councilmember Anderson,
Aye.
Councilmember Goshen,
Aye.
Councilmember Han, Councilmember Myers,
Hi.
Councilmember Pierce,
Aye.
Councilmember Thompson,
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman,
Aye.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Mayor Pounds.
Aye.
All in favor?
We also want to, and Mayor, I don't know if you're handling this or you want me to, but what we would like to do is appoint Scott Pierce, the newly elected council member, to the personnel committee. So I'd like to make a motion that we appoint him.
Trustees even faster than Blair.
All right. Is there any discussion?
And for the record, the mayor will step down from his seat in that committee. It's not gonna be a four-person committee.
Right. Questions? Go whenever you're ready.
Councilmember Anderson,
Aye.
Councilmember Bogosian,
Aye.
Councilmember Han,
Aye.
Councilmember Myers,
Aye.
Councilmember Pierce,
Aye.
Councilmember Hobson,
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman,
Aye.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Mayor Pounds.
Aye.
All in favor? Thank you.
That wraps up my report.
Just for the record, I know the question has been asked regarding the ATAX committee and the applicants, whether or not they must be island residents. And I just wanted to confirm that they must be island residents to be eligible to serve on that committee.
And I guess one other point is they can't be a part of another committee, right? There's can only serve, you can only be on one committee at a time.
Yeah, correct. State law prohibits dual office holding.
Mayor. Yeah, you might have mentioned this, Councilmember Bogosian, but how many applicants do we now have?
I'll let Desiree answer that.
Last time we looked at the online applications, we had 5, but over the weekend, we had received a handful of additional applications, but I haven't looked whether they're for ATAX or planning. The planning commission, we also have a vacancy now that Mr. Pierce was elected to council. So we have several applications so far.
And John, did you say when have y'all set the next personnel committee meeting? Sorry.
Yeah, I don't have the date in
That's all
front of me, but it's the first Tuesday in.
First Tuesday of the
in-
month.
in the month.
May 3rd.
There you go, May 3rd.
Next Tuesday. Thank you. Real property, Rusty.
Okay, I think we could make this pretty quick because a lot of it's already been covered and our list is getting short. We had a real property committee meeting at 1:30 PM Monday, April the 11th. All council members that are on the committee were present, Myers, Popson, Streetman. We also had Administrator Fregoso, and we had Kirby Marshall with ATM, who was here to present to us as well. We approved the previous meeting's minutes, and we had no citizen comments. We had no Marina tenant comments. So under old business, I will just basically let you know that this was updated earlier through the mayor here. Update on Marina Dock rehabilitation project, update on Marina restaurant renovation. All that's been done. I won't repeat that again. Plus it's online. Update on the proposed public dock and green space at the Alpine Marina. Administrator Fregoso said that we had hired Davis and Floyd to do the specs for the project, and they had hired a structural engineer to evaluate the bulkhead in that area. So that will have to be done before any construction begins, and any agreed upon changes will be done after the season. The rules have been posted at the public dock, and activities that there are being monitored by the police department. We mentioned earlier about the meditation class, so that those began. And then starting in May, Coastal Expeditions will offer twice monthly resident-only tours. 3-month schedule of events and topics will be released at the end of April. We've got a lot of positive feedback about the dock so far, and I know that every time that I go down there, it seems like later in the afternoons, there's people typically down there sitting on the dock, and admiring the view. So that's good. Update on the ADA beach access improvements. Administrator Fregoso reported that OCRM has approved the city's request to extend the Moby mats closer to the water and dry sand in order to enhance access to the beach for those with physical challenges. Staff is currently in the process of extending the mat at 42nd Avenue. We'll do a period of evaluation to determine staffing requirements for maintaining the mat. The next mat will be extended. The next mat to be extended will be at 9th Avenue. And, if we have king tides or a storm or whatever, that mat has to be rolled up at that point too. It's stored safely. Director Carr gave a presentation to the Greenbelt Funding Board last month about the project at 34A. The city is awaiting approval before going out for bidding. The city will be responsible for 20% of the project cost if approved, and we will also submit for an extended Moby mat at this location upon completion of the project. Administrator Fregoso said she's received positive feedback about the beach wheelchair program. 7 people used them in March, and we're going to add more if we approve the budget for 23. Under new business, we had discussion and consideration of proposed options for the redevelopment of the new public dock and T-dock Marina. And we brought that before Ways and Means this past week, had a lot of discussion about it. You can see all that online. And our committee did recommend option C for both docks as we came out of the committee. That again, had the discussion last week. Under miscellaneous business, the next meeting of the Real Property Committee will be held on Monday, May the 2nd, 2022 at 1:30 p.m. There ends my report if there's no questions.
Question?
Yep.
Which doc did we recommend? Which? Were you talking about
We recommended option C, kind of recapping the minutes.
for the T? for
Yeah,
the
we
T?
recommended, as a
Okay.
committee, we recommended option C for both docks.
But we,
Well, I'm not discussing what we
what went
ultimately
on?
did last week in Ways and Means. That's not part of my report. here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
We did change to option B for the public dock, which was an upgrade from C.
Thank you. Other questions? Comments? Rusty, thank you. Item 6, reports from city officers, boards and commissions. Board of Zoning Appeals, minutes are attached. Planning Commission, minutes are also attached. We've asked Douglas to provide an update on the status of development of recommendations for regulating short-term rentals. That's a mouthful. Douglas, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. The Planning Commission, as you all know, they've been looking at trends with short-term rentals. They have pulled a lot of data from the city's licensing software on the licenses. They've also pulled a lot of data from the county's tax records. They have merged that data together in a tool that allows them to kind of analyze the size, the location, the number, and the trends of these short-term rentals, where they are, kind of where they've been previously. They've also looked at what other communities have been doing. I think we talked at their last meeting just last week about when we anticipated their finalizing a recommendation to you all. They've kind of agreed that their effort would be to have a finalized recommendation for your June meeting. And there is consensus, I would say, on the Planning Commission of kind of generally following a recommendation that Kiowa, following what Kiowa has done. And their model has been to divide the island into similar areas. So kind of neighborhoods seem to have characteristics unto themselves, try to find those neighborhoods and try to establish caps within those neighborhoods that will mirror what's historically been in that neighborhood. So that's all a little bit of a work in progress. In your packets, there was the most recent map, and that map has the island divided into 9 different areas. And there is an associated graph that shows the number of rentals compared to primary residents within each of those districts. So you can kind of see that, there are some parts of the island that are 40% rentals. There's other short-term rentals. There's other parts of the island that are, say, 5%. So there's a pretty big disparity based on where the properties are. So they still have a fair amount of work to do to come up with, is it slightly more than current? Is it at current levels? Also may consider looking at other provisions within those individual zones. So they still have a fair amount of work to do to get a recommendation to you, but we are hopeful that they will have something to you by your June meeting. So they would finalize their recommendation middle of June, have it to you by the end of June. Any questions about that?
Yeah, first of all, I applaud that committee's work. I think the tool that was developed and the data is extremely valuable and helpful. But June is a long time in my view. Is there any way that you can have the committee move up and have a recommendation ready for council by the May meeting? Even if you have to have a separate meeting. I mean, this is something, I think the data is not going to change. And I think we need a sense of urgency around this.
Well, I think that they feel a sense of urgency that they will have, they need really 2 meetings. I mean, they need at least 2 meetings and they need, each of those meetings has a fair amount of staff workup to get to them. I mean, we're creating a brand new policy. So we can and I've let them know that, you know,
I
time
would
is.
just ask that you staff and work with the committee and see, even if you, like I said, if you have to have a special meeting, just get us something by May.
Yeah, okay, pass that along.
Other questions? Douglas?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Accommodation Tax Advisory Committee, minutes are attached. Environmental Advisory Committee, minutes are also attached. Item 7, reports from special or joint committees, Accommodation Task Force, minutes are attached. Item 8, petitions received, referred, or disposed of, none. Item 9, bills already in possession of council, none. Item 10, introduction of new bills, resolutions, and proclamations. Item A, ordinance 2022-01, an ordinance to raise revenue and adopt a budget for the city of Isle of Palm, South Carolina for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2023. I'd like to make a motion, we approve and discuss this item tonight.
Second. This is first reading.
It is first reading.
You need to have suspension of rules of order.
Well, second reading is where you can bypass reading the ordinance. First reading is by title only, but there can still be discussion. It's my understanding.
That's fine.
Desiree or Brent, you may want to. So just real quick, from a highlight standpoint on the budget, our revenue number is about 22.5 million for our fiscal 23 budget. Our expenses are just under 24 million, so we'll be taking from reserves, if you will, about $1.5 million for the fiscal 23 year. We're going to start the fiscal 23 year with about $30 million in, or just under $31 million actually, in fund balances. We're projected to end the fiscal 23 year with about 29.3 million in fund balances. So again, pretty healthy from a fund balance standpoint. Some items that are included in our budget from a big ticket item standpoint, 2.6 million for phase 3 drainage that we've talked about here tonight and last week at Ways and Means. We have moved our 41st project that we just talked about a minute ago that we're still waiting on a permit for, is 3.6 million. We'll move that to fiscal 24. We have 200,000 to complete our comprehensive drainage plan that we began work this year. Have another $500,000 in for smaller drainage projects that will be identified by the comprehensive drainage plan. Talked about this just a minute ago. We have 400,000 in to improve the T-Dock. A fiscal 24 item will be the public dock expansion, which is a $1.7 million item, but again, that's a fiscal 24 item. We have about 150,000 in for installation of the public green space around the new dock. About 250,000 in to maintain, renovate, and construct beach access paths. We have some funds in, not a whole lot in 23, about 35,000, but over the course of 3 years, we have about 250,000 for undergrounding other electrical line projects that we work with Dominion to identify. We have some funds in to reconstruct and reconfigure outdoor basketball courts and construct 2 pickleball courts at the rec center. We will transfer from tourism funds to the general fund about $1.2 million to cover some costs, whether it be police, fire, BSOs, other costs that we have in our general budget. We have about $800,000 being transferred from the general fund to the capital projects fund, which is our projection at this point. Just to give you a feel for our budget from a millage tax standpoint, I probably could have led with this item, but there will be no tax increase for this year. We should have started there instead of all these numbers. But just by way of comparison, our tax millage is 0.0233, and some of you are very familiar with that. By comparison, Sullivan's is 0.05. Mount Pleasant is 0.039. Folly Beach is 0.034. So again, we're at 0.023. So very competitive, if you will, millage rate on our property. We have one item that'll be coming off from a debt schedule standpoint this year. It's our rec center. So that was a 20-year debt item that matures in fiscal 23. Questions? Yes, sir.
I just have a question about, are there any regulatory or state law issues with us passing this without a recommendation from the Accommodation Tax Advisory Committee for one of the A-tax?
Can I make one comment real quick, because I did meant to mention something real quick. So just for clarity, in that particular line item on our budget, and again, it's 30% of our projected state A-tax revenues. That particular line item, we've worded and will approve in such a way that if our task force changes past this year, we'll continue to use a DMO. If we're setting up a new DMO, it's given us the ultimate flexibility to not have to amend our budget during the year or change anything in our budget. It will allow us the flexibility through the year, whenever our task force comes back with a recommendation. Sorry, Desiree.
Yeah, so there are essentially two items that the ATAC committee is responsible for. One is making a recommendation on the 65% state aid tax fund, which is included in the FY23 budget. The committee did review that and actually rejected that budget from the city presented that you all have approved and worked on. So they've already acted on that. Ultimately, it's your decision whether or not to pass the 65%. Their role regarding the 30%, we've verified again with Turk, and they're not required or responsible for making a recommendation to council on the 30% budget from the CVB. Their responsibility based on new guidelines is to review. If the committee is then now has a quorum and is able to meet, they can certainly review that budget for the 30%, but they're not required or responsible for making a recommendation to you all on that expenditure.
So we're not required to accept their recommendation.
That's correct.
It's an advisory.
It's an advisory committee.
Nicole?
Councilmember Anderson,
Aye.
Councilmember Goshen.
Aye.
Councilmember Han,
Aye.
Councilmember Myers,
Aye.
Councilmember Pierce,
Aye.
Councilmember Popson.
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman,
Aye.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Mayor Pounds.
Aye.
All in favor?
Thank you. Item B, ordinance 2022-02, an ordinance to temporarily suspend all regular meetings of standing committees and replace with workshop meetings from July 1st, 22 until December 31st of 2022. Again, I would like to make a motion to approve and discuss this.
Second.
So we've had 4 months worth of conversation around this topic off and on, and have continued to fine tune what we're doing. So recommendation from city attorney was to put forth a ordinance change to suspend the current committee structure. Item C, which kind of goes hand in hand with this, is the resolution to put the structure in place for the workshop along with an agenda, proposed agenda that you've seen before. The main item that we've added to the agenda based on y'all's feedback and others is adding a citizen comment section to the workshop, which is always open to the public, not closed doors, live streamed minutes. Anybody can put any agenda item you want on that meeting or a council meeting. So I just want to be really clear on that. So we'll vote first on the ordinance and then the resolution. So questions or comments or?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
could you just verify that as written, if this council takes no other action after passing this ordinance, we go back to committees at the end of November, end of December?
That's correct. Because this is a temporary suspension.
So just to clarify then, so this council would have to then vote to make this change permanent.
Correct.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the clarity.
So do you have any idea how long these workshops will last?
Yeah, I'm still on my same spot we talked last time. I'm hoping a couple of hours. Desiree and staff have been working on the dashboard to, again, from a workshop standpoint, kind of take us up a level from day to day to policy setting. So this will absolutely be a work in progress, no doubt. The agenda we have outlined on the resolution, we'll continue to refine this and work on it as we try it for a few months. See if we gain the efficiencies that we think are going to be there.
Who will lead the meeting?
And
Go
ahead.
Okay.
So I want to talk a little bit more about that, the exhibit A, the procedure, so to speak. That's going to be a living document, right? I mean, that's not really part of the ordinance. And as we try this out and see what we like and what we don't like, we'll have the opportunity to change that.
Correct.
And yeah, and so the other thing is that these meetings will be just like this meeting. Open to the public, everything will be basically the same. But we won't, I just think it's an efficiency. We won't have to reinvent the wheel every single time. And also, I think that something else that could be really good that would come out of this is that if we have certain people that aren't necessarily on one committee or another, that have something that they are passionate about, that they're knowledgeable about, then those people could go and deal with that in a more in-depth way. So I think it would give some fluidity to the way that we structure what we all work on for what suits the island best. So does that make sense?
Yes. absolutely. Scott?
Yeah, all I was gonna say is, and this doesn't preclude us from having a special meeting if something comes up that we need to address.
Yeah, or to Katie's point, a task force or a special needs committee
Exactly.
of some kind. Kevin?
So you will be the chair. Is there going to be a vice chair?
Did you raise your hand?
No, no, I'm just asking the question.
I don't know that we've really gotten that far.
The mayor pro tem,
Would be the vice chair.
if you are not available to lead a meeting, this would be advertised as a special council meeting. So it'll be a special council meeting / workshop. So they're led by the mayor, and if he's not present, then the mayor pro tem would serve that role.
Rusty?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a point here also that, we're looking at expediency for sure. And certainly a lot less meetings should be taking place. These will be long meetings, but for staff time, this gives them, I think, more time to prepare. It makes it much more efficient for them. I think all of us being together in the same room, just as Councilmember Myers just mentioned, I think that'll be helpful also, because sometimes the committee messages sort of get lost in translation too. If we go into an executive session or something that, the other members of the council who aren't on the committees don't really know what the outcome of that is very timely. Not all council members can watch all the committee meetings like I do. And, so therefore they may not be able, because of their personal obligations, work obligations, family obligations, they may not be able to really catch up. But in this workshop format, we think this will put everybody on the same page, same time. And it not only should increase the expediency, but should increase the effectiveness of what we have as a council. So that's our hope, and we can always turn on a dime if we have to.
Jan?
I'm looking forward to trying this, but it's definitely a trial. I'm excited because I think it'll force us to become more policy oriented. We won't be installing stop signs anymore. That's our staff's responsibility, not council. So I'm looking forward to us elevating our decision-making process as part of this. My one concern is to make sure that the community still feels informed with this format, and I think that's what we're going to be testing out along the way. So.
Again, the first item we're voting on is ordinance 2022-02, and Blair, to your comment, temporarily suspending from July 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2022, the committee structure. Nicole?
Councilmember Anderson.
Aye.
Councilmember Bogosian.
Aye.
Councilmember Han.
Aye.
Councilmember Myers.
Aye.
Councilmember Pierce.
Aye.
Councilmember Popson.
Nay.
Councilmember Streetman.
Aye.
Councilmember Ward.
Nay.
Mayor Pounds.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. So pairing with that is item C, resolution 2022-05. The resolution to temporarily adopt additional rules of order and procedure for conducting workshop meetings in order to increase expediency for transaction of the city's business. We have a motion to approve and waive the reading of that.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Questions? Additional questions? Yeah, Jan.
Okay, just one clarification. This is just the first reading of both of these, so this is actually adoption of them?
Item B is the ordinance. So that was the first reading.
First read, so the community will still have a chance to comment.
Correct.
Okay.
Second reading in May.
Second meeting in May, so We welcome comments. All right, and the resolution then is something they're just passing today.
Correct.
Thank you.
Nicole?
Councilmember Anderson,
Aye.
Councilmember Bogosian,
Aye.
Councilmember Han,
Aye.
Councilmember Myers,
Aye.
Councilmember Pierce,
Aye.
Councilmember Popson,
Nay.
Councilmember Streetman,
Aye.
Councilmember Ward,
Nay.
Mayor Pounds.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Item D, Resolution 2022-06, Safety Resolution. Again, looking for a motion to approve and waive the reading.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Questions? Desiree, comment on this? Yes, we do it.
We do it every
Routinely.
year and it just shows our commitment to safety.
Councilmember Anderson,
Aye.
Councilmember Bogosian,
Aye.
Councilmember Han,
Aye.
Councilmember Myers,
Aye.
Councilmember Pierce,
Aye.
Councilmember Popson,
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman,
Aye.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Mayor Pounds.
Aye.
All in favor?
Thank you. Item E, Proclamation 2022-02, National Safe Boating Week. Again, looking for a motion to approve and waive reading.
Motion to
First
approve.
motion approved.
Second.
And again, Desiree, if I'm right, you can correct me, this one we've done every year too. I think.
Every- I think I got it memorized.
We're far off yet.
Where is?
Councilmember Anderson,
Aye.
Councilmember Bogosian,
Aye.
Councilmember Han,
Aye.
Councilmember Myers,
Aye.
Councilmember Pierce,
Aye.
Councilmember Popson,
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman,
Aye.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Mayor Pounds.
Aye.
All in favor?
Thank you. Item F, Proclamation 2022-03, Peace Officer Memorial Day. And again, this is one I know we've done
Motion to approve.
Second.
in waive reading. Did I do that?
Wade reading.
Thought I heard
Yes, you did.
that. Questions?
I don't believe we have, council has approved this type of proclamation before, but certainly an important one. It recognizes the work that our law enforcement officers do and just their commitment to public safety in our community. So,
And, sorry.
no, a welcome addition to some of the proclamations that city council considers.
Chief, thank you for bringing this one to our attention. And just for information, all flags on city buildings will be flown at half staff on May 15th on this particular day. Nicole?
Councilmember Anderson,
Aye.
Councilmember Bogosian,
Aye.
Councilmember Han,
Aye.
Councilmember Myers,
Aye.
Councilmember Pierce,
Aye.
Councilmember Popson,
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman,
Aye.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Mayor Pounds.
Aye.
All in favor?
Thank you. Item 11, Miscellaneous Business, discussion of open letter from Councilmember Han to council and the importance of home rule. This is in your packet. It's in the package online as well. Blair asked to have this included on the agenda. You've read the information. Hopefully at this point, Blair can answer questions or make any additional opening comments or.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a short opening comment and then any questions if we want to discuss it. My open letter and memorandum discussing the constitutionally guaranteed right of home rule is attached to the agenda. I cannot stress strongly enough the importance of this issue. The right of this body to govern this municipality has been guaranteed by our Constitution through an amendment to the state constitution in 1973. It took 20 years for that amendment to come about, and it was done to protect our way of government from being eroded by power-hungry politicians. Please read the materials provided to you. Ask questions so that you fully understand the importance of the Constitution and the rule of law. What our legislature has done is not a question of interpreting legal jargon or parsing the meaning of words. Statute 57-5-845 is a clear, open, and direct violation of our Constitution and rule of law. This is not about parking. This is about the right of this duly elected body to represent and govern this municipality. I have attended 2 separate meetings this week and was told in both meetings that our state legislators simply do not care about our Constitution or the rule of law. That when out of the spotlight, our legislators laugh at the notion of upholding the Constitution. They quite honestly believe they are above the Constitution and the rule of law. I am here to tell anyone that will listen that I am not above the Constitution or the rule of law. I swore an oath, as did each one of us, to uphold the Constitution, and I, for one, take that oath seriously. Each one of our state legislators, as well as our governor, took that same oath. They have chosen to turn their backs on our Constitution and the rule of law to pander to a small group of voters. I believe that this council is better than that. I believe that this island is better than that. I urge this council, even if we do it alone, to demand that our state legislators recognize, restore, and comply with the Constitution and the rule of law in this state. To turn our backs on our way of government will change our democracy and way of life on this island for generations to come. Again, I believe we are better than that. I urge this council to take decisive action against all attempts by any group or individual to circumvent the Constitution and rule of law that we each swore to uphold. Let's do the right thing and protect our island and our residents from the erosion of our right to govern as guaranteed by our Constitution. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Blair, because there's a lot of research and time went into that. Questions, comments? Katie?
Yeah, I would just like to thank Blair. I thought it was very, very enlightening reading. And I've heard the same comments about the fact that our state legislators laugh at the Constitution. And I think that that's something that we all need to think really, really seriously about. And I'm not okay with that. We are a little island, but we are still residents of this state. And, you know, I kind of think that if that's the way that things are believed to be, maybe we need to do what we can, even if it is a little bit, to try to show them that that's not acceptable for, at least for this island. So thank you very much, Blair.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments, Trustee? Sorry.
Yeah,
Go ahead now. Kevin.
okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too agree that the violation that we've had with S40 singling out 4 municipalities, beach municipalities, treating us differently than the other 270 or so municipalities in the state is just egregious. And I think we've always thought that, the way that came down. And you know, I don't know how legislators personally feel about whether they scoff at the constitutionality or not. I don't know that personally, but I do know that I've got a couple of friends that are state legislators that seem to not pay a lot of attention to it. And I've had those conversations with them. But we have violations that have occurred. Now, that being said, too, we do have, you know, some discussions going on also, and I know that in taking Blair's words here, that we can't negotiate our way out of this. I think there's some credibility to that. Maybe we do need to take some stronger action here. I don't know what that action would be at this point, or what we ought to consider, but certainly we ought to, I think, make it known that we're not happy with the status of how things are here.
Well written, Blair, and a lot of good information. But didn't we, if memory serves me right, last council, didn't we do a resolution somewhat condemning the state for passing this S40? And I don't know if it got anywhere, but I thought we did a resolution at least saying we didn't agree with it as a council.
That is correct.
So, thank you.
And I think we had another resolution earlier this year when the short-term rental bill came up, Kevin, to your point, voicing our opposition to that one as well.
Mr. Mayor, will there be any interest by the committee or by the council in forming a smaller committee to bring recommendations to council as to steps that we could take going forward to hold our legislators accountable?
So we got rid of committees. Right?
We only got a month.
Effective July 1. Got a couple of months.
We gotta have a meeting tonight.
I don't know that I would, maybe we take it back to personnel committee. It's the logical spot, most likely. see where they would want to have a conversation around it.
Or form just a, I don't know if Councilwoman Myers would have an interest in working with others on council to provide suggestions on where we can go from here.
Maybe a suggestion, maybe you and Councilwoman Myers could just get together and put some recommendations together to be able to present to council. I think, with all joking aside, I don't think we're setting up another committee. It's a task specific item that you're looking to address, and it might take a couple of days or a week or a month, but I don't see any harm in that at all.
Sure.
You just got to volunteer.
Flinchy flinch.
Well, I mean, and I do think that's kind of part of what we were talking about earlier, is that we are going to have to figure out a way to, we are going to need some people to be in smaller groups to delve more in depth into certain issues. And so I don't know how that, I don't know how that will, I guess we'll see when we start doing the workshops, how that's going to work as a practical matter.
Can I just point out something? Once we go to workshop, we have a lot less for the quorum issues. I don't see there any reason why council members can't work together if there are less than 4 people on an issue, and then come back if they've got something they're interested in working on, bring it back to council and present.
Well, can I-
John,
in this particular issue, I think it's been brought up before, and I think if you feel like the Constitution, I agree too, but if you feel like the Constitution has been violated, I think your recourse you're suggesting is a lawsuit against the state. So I don't know how many committees you need to say we want to form to get a lawsuit against the state. So, but my question is, or what I'd be curious is what is our legal course of action, or what is our legal case against the state, and get that from an attorney? I know you're an attorney, I know Katie's an attorney, but you're also a council member. So I'd like to see a third party attorney, an expert in the state constitutional law, give us an opinion to council about what is the legal case of S40 that the state violated by S40, and as well as the bridge and anything else you want to add into it. But I'd like to see that. And I don't think you need a committee to do that. And they can bring that back to council, and we can look at it and make a decision from that point, what we want to do with it.
Fair enough. There's going to be expense involved in that.
Of course there will be.
So I'd need approval to spend some money.
Well, then I make a motion that we get an attorney.
I mean, that could be the motion. Certainly would be appropriate for the city to bring recommendations of expert attorneys in constitutional law and provide, we can engage them and have them provide an opinion on what the next
Yep.
step would be, or what options council has.
I don't know what the Attorney General would say about this.
you want to write it for me?
I've written them before.
Is there a second for Councilman Goshen's?
Well, I don't know that you finished the motion. So go ahead,
Well,
John.
Did she finish her motion?
That's-
You can't do that.
I can't do a
And-
motion.
and-
Yeah, but she
yeah.
finished, I'm just asking if that's where we're going. Checking.
Well, second.
So John, just to clarify, what the task would be to identify what are our constitutional options. Is that correct? Or what is the interpretation of the constitutional law?
Not the interpretation, how they violated the Constitution by what they did, and what our recourse is in that. What is our legal case against that? And present an option to us. Because right now, we throw around this lawsuit thing, I don't know how many times now, but really it's a lot of opinions up here, and I realize we have some lawyers on the council, but I would like to see a third party give me an opinion on what is our case.
You're not kidding
I mean,
about the Attorney General. I'm not. Yeah.
As an option, or
That's what he's there for.
Well, the Attorney General is not going to give us the type of opinion that Mr. Bogosian is asking for.
I think we do both.
I mean, I think we are at a point now where it would be really helpful to get some You know, I mean, when that was first mentioned, I'm thinking of my constitutional law professor and wondering if he's still with us. But, you know, someone like that, that's very, very well versed in the state of South Carolina, constitutional law, I think it would be really beneficial to get their opinion.
I'd like to also know what that means to us in terms of being a single entity, small entity. It's always better to have a class action, a group of communities that feel the same. So there are 3 others we probably need to contact to see what their opinion is of it. And also, in the end, what it would cost in time and money if we decide to pursue this.
Nicole,
So what's the motion?
The motion is to get expert opinion, the staff would gather expert opinion, correct, to present those to council.
We can engage an attorney. I would rely on our advice of our city attorney and our assistant city attorney and on a recommendation of who this expert could be, and for us to engage them and ask them to develop a sort of memo detailing the issue and what options the city has.
Nicole,
Councilmember Anderson,
Aye.
Councilmember Bogosian,
Aye.
Councilmember Han,
Aye.
Councilmember Myers,
Aye.
Councilmember Pierce,
Aye.
Councilmember Popson,
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman,
Aye.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Mayor Pounds,
Aye.
all in favor?
Blair,
Thank you,
again,
council.
you.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
Next item, item B, under miscellaneous business, Blair had also asked to have on for discussion. We're currently in Public Safety Committee as a noise ordinance, and I think our police staff are helping draft some of that from a decibel level, amplified music standpoint. Blair had asked for discussion of including regulations regarding the use of leaf blowers and the noise ordinance revisions. There was a sample ordinance in your packet from a town in California. I know Desiree's reached out to Sullivan's and had some conversations because they've been back and forth, hot and cold on this same topic over the last few months. And it was met with some pretty good resistance from the landscape community around, you know, the technology from their view, you know, just not there from a battery pack or whatever. And that doesn't mean anything to us, just giving you background that we reached out to other folks. So Blair, anything you want to add or talk to that?
Only, we had a public comment about it earlier, and I think this has to be included in any noise ordinance, because we're talking about noise ordinance in the 55 to 60 decibel range is what people are talking about. Mount Pleasant just enacted a noise ordinance at 55 decibels. A Rolls Royce at 60 miles an hour is louder than that. So that's pretty quiet. And if we enact a noise ordinance, it is going to affect leaf blowers and lawn mowers and weed eaters and all that stuff. And so it all has to be looked at together. One of the things I liked about this particular ordinance was that this city put aside money to help mitigate the cost with landscapers by allowing people to come and trade in for cash gas-powered blowers. And I believe this particular one was $150. You give the city the gas blower and you get $150 so you could buy an electric one. Not saying that's the thing to do, it just all needs to be incorporated. And that was the purpose of it.
Comment.
Rusty.
Where is Yountville?
California.
California.
That's right. A lot of good things come from California.
I, just as all of us do, I live in that area of the island where we hear leaf blowers all the time, weed eaters. I happen to have a lithium battery in my blower, and I guess it's under the decibel level that you'd be suggesting here, but this one just doesn't, it doesn't work for me.
John, then Kevin.
Yeah, look, I just don't like the fact that we're singling out leaf blowers. If this should be addressed if and when we address the noise ordinance. it shouldn't be leaf blowers, because then I think as a public comment said, then we're gonna be getting into the whole litany of things of lawnmowers and weed eaters and all kind of other things. I mean, I think this, if we enact, we don't have a noise ordinance right now at a certain decibel level, but we'll have to entertain that. I think at that time, we shouldn't single anything out at this point.
And I think that was the intent. Kevin.
Kind of like what Rusty just said. My first question is, how are we going to enforce it? I mean, the only way to enforce it is one neighbor calling on their other neighbor. So you're pitting neighbor against neighbor. And, we have a lot of short-term rentals. We have a lot of second or vacation homes that have these landscape contracts, and these companies are coming on the island cutting their grass. They're going to leave. They're not going to come on the island if they got to change their leaf blowers from a backpack gas to a battery. And I've got both a gas and a battery, and they both sound about the same noise wise. So, and Mr. Campbell took my thunder, where does it stop? Lawnmowers, chainsaws, nail guns. I mean, we keep going down the list. So I'm with Rusty. This one's not for me.
Katie.
I would also agree with the public comment. My neighbors all get their leaves blown with gas blowers, and their yards are like perfect. I do mine with my battery powered one, and there's a lot of leaves in my front yard. So if you're looking for that perfect grass, it's not going to happen with the gas, with the battery powered. So yeah, I think it's a hard one to do. I mean, plus there's a lot of other machinery out there that's just as loud. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and Jen, when you speak, could you just give us an update on the noise ordinance if you have that off the top of your head? 'Cause that's in public safety.
I don't. Desiree, do you?
No, that the city staff is still working on it. So we haven't presented yet anything in writing for the committee to react yet.
All right, I think this should be covered with the noise ordinance update. For one reason, we're talking about suing the state because we've been singled out as a unique entity, and now we're talking about singling out this poor little leaf blower that's really attacking. I mean, it's a group that we depend on, our landscapers, who really probably aren't working on that big a margin, where the battery packed leaf blowers are much more expensive, I think, than the gas powered ones. And so I think if we take it with the noise ordinance, we can do it objectively, and then we know that landscapers can make that decision for themselves to be under that requirement. Anything else?
Yeah, just discussion item, so you can continue it in public safety.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Next item, item C, we had a legislative update section, a newer section in our miscellaneous business. There is posted to the package. Our lobbyists are giving us a monthly report of bills or pending legislation or whatever's going on. There is a lot of pending legislation that is around the budget and allocation of American Rescue Funds, and not really worth talking about, in my opinion, until it becomes final to some degree. But our lobbyists are watching it for us. A couple of items that were of interest. There was a bill introduced by Senator Campson a little bit earlier this year, Senate Bill 106, that would dedicate 25% of the state's admissions tax to a beach renourishment. Did not make it out of Senate, so that was dead for the year. There was also a House bill, the short-term rental bill that we talked about earlier, that would punish municipalities that ban short-term property rentals. Did not make it out of the House as well, so probably dead. There was one also, Blair, to your topic, about a sunset provision for all beachfront management regulations and laws. That did not make it out of the Senate as well, thank goodness. And then this one has had a lot of headlines, the DHEC restructuring, which would create two separate state agencies, one for health, one for environment. Made the crossover time frame, but it sounds like it's unlikely to come out of the House from what our lobbyists are understanding. Yes, sir.
My viewpoint is a couple of years ago, but before that, we didn't have this kind of information. So I think that money spent in the budget on lobbyists, well worth it. Very detailed report, things we need to know about. Like it didn't make it out. of committee. So yeah, I'm very pleased with that.
Yeah, I think there's two items that we have this year, our lobbyist and our grant writer. Money well spent, from a council standpoint.
I guess the short-term rental item was one of the things that the lobbyists got on right away to,
Well, and we passed a resolution very quickly when that
Yeah.
one started.
whereas if we had them around when we were fighting the parking issues, we might have not had the same thing happen. So it's hindsight,
One can dream.
yes.
Other item under legislative update, Scott has had some conversation, we've had conversation around adding an item to seek state funding for initiatives to enhance visitor experience and other initiatives, like we've had a request in with Bustos for dredging at the Marina. Scott, other comments,
No,
items, just-
I was just looking, I mean, I think our budget has about 7% of our revenues are coming from grant income next year, which is it's a nice amount of money. The grant writer seems to be successful in getting some activity and money coming in. I'd like to hope we can take it maybe another step further and try to get even more plugged into the budget process up in Columbia, when the money seems to be flowing quite freely over the next couple of years. And there's a lot of, if we can get in front of more requests, it seems like when we did talk to some of the folks and representatives up in Columbia, the question about our not getting money was because we hadn't asked. And I think we can ask a lot more. Again, I'm going to give credit. I think there's a lot more activity going on in the last couple of years than there has been historically, but I think we can even do more. And it would be nice to see a lot of our costs that are enjoyed by people that are off the island, help contribute more if we can. So that's really all I want to say.
Thank you, Scott. Item D, discussion of enforcement of existing lease terms regarding overnight/long-term parking. It's obviously at the Marina. And just by way of update, real quick, since if residents kind of left off this story from Ways and Means last week, the city had made known, based on feedback and conversations, had made known its stance on not to allow overnight or long-term parking in the shared lot, and that for the city to hang on to those 16 resident spots that we spent a fair amount of time talking about at Ways and Means last week. So once that was made known to the two Marina tenants, that really took the city out of that particular memorandum of understanding that was going on between the two tenants there for the shared lot specifically. So that MOU, memorandum of understanding, has been executed by the two Marina tenants. City has its 16 spots. Just by way of quick reminder, around the restaurant, there will be 45 to 50 spots that will be free parking for restaurant use. There's about 14 golf cart spots along 41st, right at the entrance to the Marina. So, I think we'll continue to chip away at this thing and have a whole lot more conversation around that. Our next item, discussion of review of Marina parking management and potential replacement. We will need to go into executive session for that conversation. But Desiree, can I just hit the last miscellaneous business item before we go in? So next meeting is regular meeting on 6 p.m. Tuesday, May 24th. From executive session standpoint, pursuant to South Carolina Code Section 30-4-70A2 for the discussion incident to propose contractual arrangements related to the Marina. Also executive session pursuant to South Carolina Code Section 30-4-70A2 for the receipt of legal advice concerning potential claims related to the enforcement of existing lease terms and parking management at the Marina. An executive session pursuant to South Carolina Code 30-4-70A2 for the receipt of legal advice concerning a proposed civil settlement from Jonathan Gandolfo related to the tree cutting case.
Motion to go into executive session.
Second,
Nicole.
Councilmember Anderson,
aye.
Councilmember Bogosian,
Aye.
Councilmember Han,
Aye.
Councilmember Myers,
Aye.
Councilmember Pierce,
Aye.
Councilmember Popson.
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman,
Aye.
Councilmember Ward.
Aye.
Mayor Pounds.
Aye.
All in